Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Mr. Ainsworth, and we are going to get into another lesson on how to compound money, okay, and not using simple interest, but actually how to compound semi-annually and also quarterly. So in our first video here in part one, we did it where we took $30,000 at 6% interest rate, and we compounded annually, which means we're adding the interest in at the end of the year. And we saw how 30,000 grew over time, over a span of 10 years. And we did that first by hand. So when I first led the lesson here, we did all the mathematics by hand. We talked about how to calculate the simple interest after 5 years. We did a 5-year growth here on this one here because we were doing it by hand, not 10 but 5, just because there's a lot of calculations involved. And then we did it compounding annually. So I showed how money grows if you compound it annually. If you start off with $30,000 at 6%, so we did all this by hand. We generated it, and we found the ending value where the ending balance was $40,146.77 compared to $39,000 if you just let it sit in a simple interest account. And then I showed everybody how to do it on the Google Sheets, which is basically the same as an Excel spreadsheet. And we found out that it is the same amount. So after 5 years, this is year 5, just look at this row right here, we calculated the same amount. And I went through that in part 1. Well, in part 2, we want to compound semi-annually. And then in part 3, and we'll do that, do it quarterly, which means 4 times a year because there are 4 quarters per year. All right, so the only thing that we need to add in here that I forgot to do in the beginning video here was put in your name, okay? And I forgot to do that. So we're going to select this row right here because this is what we ended with in part 1. All right, here I'm going to select that. Just click on row 1. I'm going to insert one above, okay? So I selected a row. So when you say insert one above, it implies that we're going to put a row above here, and then we're going to put our name. So what I want to do is merge these cells. So select A1 through F1 here. Go to the merge, which I talked about in the first video here. We're going to merge those cells together. So that's 6 columns worth of cells right there. So from A1 to F1 is 6 columns. We're going to make it one cell. So we're going to click the down arrow there and say merge horizontally. And notice that it's now one complete cell. The reason why I do that is because I'm going to type in my name, which is kind of long, Mr. Ainsworth. You type in your name, okay, because you're going to submit this later on. So Mr. Ainsworth, you type in your name, financial algebra. All right, let's give it the proper title, financial algebra, and then put your period in there, whatever period is. So period, whatever. Dot. Okay, if it's either period 1 or 3 this year in 2020. So period, and then, put a year in there. Okay, we're in this famous COVID area during our crazy pandemic here during 2020 where we're actually doing things online for the first time in history. Unprecedented. Now, I don't want my name to get confused with the title of the lesson here, so I'm going to click on that row. I'm going to change the color just to change things up. You can design your colors any way you like, so don't think that my way is the only way. So just go ahead and do things a little bit differently here. Okay, so now this one here, in our first example, like I said, during part 1, I did this compounding annually. So I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to bold it, and I'm going to make that red. I'm going to just change things up a little bit here. The title of the lesson is Compounding Annually versus Semi-Annually versus Quarterly using a Spreadsheet. And you know what? I'm going to make that a different color. So let's go. I don't know. Green. Green's good. All right. So there's my title. And in the first example here, we compound annually with a principal of 30,000. I was talking about last time too that this is a dynamic program. This is what's so cool about it. So that after you type in all the formulas and you design it correctly using formulas, not numbers, okay? Well, numbers within the formulas. You can change 30,000 to, let's say, 20,000, and everything automatically adjusts. Notice how all the numbers change, okay? And so that's the beauty of a spreadsheet. If you want to change it at any time, you just click on the cell. Let's say I want to change the interest rate to 2%. Let's say your bank only gives you 2%, not 6%. Notice everything changes automatically. That's what the dynamic feature is all about. Things change as you change them. All you have to do is, enter the formulas incorrectly. So I'm going to put the original values back in, $30,000 principal plus, and then the interest rate of 6%. We're going to stick with that. But this time we're going to see how money grows over 10 years. We're going to keep the same time period and keep the same principal and keep the same interest rate and just compare the different methods. What happens when you compound semi-annually, which means twice a year versus only once a year? What happens when you do it quarterly, which is 4 times a year versus annually once a year? So we should see money grow faster because the more times you compound it, the faster the money grows. And so we'll talk about that. All right, so what we're going to do is come down here. We're going to copy this. So go ahead and copy all these titles right here. Okay, and we're going to, go ahead and copy those. So Control C, and then come down here, leave a couple rows in between here, 2 or 3 rows. It doesn't really matter. If you want to be exactly as I'm doing it here, let's start on row 18. Let's leave 2 rows in between. Just go Control V. That's a paste, and everything is transferred down here. Okay. And then let's put this cell here, final answers. Let's copy that. Let's come down here to F17, paste it in, and notice that we get the same type of deal here. So again, Control C is copy on a PC. Control V is paste on a PC. If you're using a Mac, then you need to Google and go to YouTube and learn how to do this on the Mac using the program called Numbers. Okay, so that's easy to do. You just go to a YouTube channel, type in youtube.com, type in using let me see, spreadsheets. Here, spreadsheets on a Mac. Okay, now watch this. So a bunch of stuff's gonna appear. Okay, and then here we go. This one right here. This is fairly recent, so this might be a good one here. I don't know who these dudes are, but it says how to make a basic checkbook spreadsheet using Numbers on a Mac. Numbers is the program on a Mac. So spreadsheets using, actually let me change the title here, the search. Spreadsheets using Numbers on a Mac. Okay, oh here we go. So this looks like a good one here. Numbers on a Mac. That's fairly recent, and it looks like it might be a decent one. So if you're a Mac user, you might want to check this out. Now I'm on a PC. I'm on a Surface Pro, and it doesn't really matter, but I'm on a PC and I'm using the Google Sheets versus Excel. But if you're using the main program Excel, which is the platform that you use on the computer itself versus an online platform called the Google Sheets, it's basically the same thing. So here we go. And by the way, when I go through this here, this is only one of many ways to do this. I'm showing the step-by-step method how to generate it using a spreadsheet, but obviously there's more advanced ways. So if you research how to do this, you'll probably see other ways of doing it, because this is just a step-by-step approach versus a more advanced way using compound interest formulas. So, and I'm not using any compound interest formulas. I'm using the basic interest formula, principal times rate times time. So here we go. Now we need to put a title on this. This next one here. Let me see. Let's title it, instead of compounding annually, let's go ahead and just go up there and copy this. Come down here and paste it in, and we'll modify it. Okay. I like saving time because I'm not the fastest typist. So you double click on it, and let's type in the word semi. Okay. Semi-annually. So what that means, it means for twice a year, or every half a year, or every 6 months. So let's type that in as well. So, oops, excuse me. Let me go back to that. So let's put down every half a year. So 1/2 year, okay, semi-annually. 1/2 year, or every 6 months. Obviously, half of 12 is 6. Okay, so compounded semi-annually every half a year or every 6 months. That's important to understand. Okay, and over here we're going to get the final answer. So I'm going to enlarge that just so we can have things a little bit bigger and bolder. Here we go. Let's make this a little bit bigger and bolder here too. Okay, so if we're going to compound it semi-annually, that means we're going to compound it every 6 months, or we're going to compound it every half a year. So that means we compound it twice a year. So what we need to do in the year column here is go ahead and set it up. So a half a year is 0.5. So instead of entering, 1/2, I'm going to enter in 0.5. All right, and then 1, and then 1.5, and we're going to go by increments of 1/2 because we're doing it every 6 months or every half a year, which means it's semi-annually. Okay, semi meaning half a year, every half a year. Now, remember what I said about the Excel spreadsheet. The Google Sheets or Excel, either one, recognizes a pattern. So if you go underneath here, underneath the year column here, so I'm in A19, okay, column A, row 19. And if I highlight these three numbers here, Google Sheets recognizes the pattern, and this is just another arithmetic sequence, okay, where the increment is 1/2, or the common difference is 1/2, or 0.5. It knows that we're just simply adding 0.5. And we want to go all the way to year 10. So I'm just going to grab this little square right here. Notice that my cursor changes from an arrow to it looks like a plus sign, okay? And you click and drag down all the way until you get to 10 years. Okay, and that's way down there. So notice that I went to year 14. That's not necessary. I only want to compare the first 10 years. So if you want, you just go ahead and delete those. So go delete, enter, delete, enter, delete, enter. Just keep on, just delete those. That's one way you can do it, or you can select them and then delete it. Okay, either way. Oops, let me go back up there. All right, so there we go. Now we have the period set up. Every half a year we're going to compound the interest, which means we're going to calculate it and put it back into the account and then recalculate the values. All right, so what we want to do, I forgot to bring up the principal, and well, we can put it right here. I forgot to get these cells in here. I should have copied more than just the titles. I should have copied this entire thing. That's okay. What we can do is we can insert some rows. Okay, so we're gonna insert some rows so that I can get let's see here. How should I do this? Oh, there's a little mistake there earlier, but that's okay. I'm gonna insert go to row 17, highlight it, and let's go right click and let's insert a row below so we can put in the principal and the interest rate. Let's insert another row. And so now we have two rows. Okay, so let's put in let's take these quantities here. So notice that I just used my cursor here. I put it in the middle of the cell. I click and drag, and then I copy that. Okay, so Control C, and then come right here, and then Control V to paste. And notice that I just pasted those numbers right in there. We need to know what the beginning balance is. That's called the principal, and we need to know what the interest rate is. So I should have copied that whole thing. I should have went like this earlier. Okay, so that was my bad, and copied that entire thing. So if I was going to do this again and rerun the video, that's what I would do. So I apologize for that, but that's what I should have done. Okay, when you make mistakes, you got to learn how to modify them anyway. So we're okay. And if you're worried about this title right here, that's no big deal. If you want to copy that and then bring it down here and paste it in, and then just delete that, you still have something that looks pretty good. Okay, so my final answers are still going to be there. If you don't care about that and you can leave the title right back up there, that's fine, because the final answers are still off to the right. So we're all good. All right. So let's set up the cells. Now remember what we did before. We set everything as a formula. Remember that. So we start off with an equal sign, and I select the cell that has the principal in it. In this case, it's D18. So you click on D18 and hit enter. Notice that now my beginning balance in the spreadsheet is $30,000, which corresponds to my principal right here. So as I change it, let's say I change it to 20,000. Let's say I'm just kind of playing here. It dynamically changes. Okay, so you don't enter in numbers, you enter in formulas. Let's change that back to 30,000. That was just to show you what I was talking about here. Now we want to input the interest formula. How much interest are we getting after, a half a year? Okay, so here we go. So we're going to say equals the principal, which is to the left. It's in B21, so we select B21 here, times, which is shift 8 for the asterisk, or you can use the parentheses here. And we need the interest rate. Okay, so this is the interest rate. 6% is the interest rate per year or annually. We need the interest rate for 6 months. So, let's do it this way. Let's calculate this right here. Let's click on this cell for the interest rate. So it's again. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Let me pause here. Let's go back up to this. Now let's just continue. Okay, so we got D19, so which is represents the interest rate of 6%. Notice that this number here, if you remember from me talking about in the first video here, it has to be static. So we're going to use that dollar sign. So $D, $19. This keeps it constant, so it does not change. And that's a number right now. We need to change the 6% as a decimal. So I need to divide that by 100. So I'm going to divide this by 100 and then close it off. So it's principal times rate times time. So I got the principal in B21. Okay, that's the number to the left right here. I multiply it by the rate as a decimal. So I take 6, which is in cell D19, I divide it by 100. And then I got to multiply it by the length of time right here, which is 1/2 a year, or 0.5. So I'm going to go times, which is shift 8, all right, 0.5 or 0.5. And that's my amount of money, or the interest, calculated after 1/2 of year. So it's always PRT. Interest equals P, principal, times rate times time. The principal, once again, is 30,000. That's located in B21. If you look at the formula up here, times the interest rate, and make sure it's constant. So go $D, $19, insert the dollar signs to make it constant, divide it by 100 to change it to a decimal, and then multiply by the time. In this case, we're doing it semi-annually, so the time is a half a year. Remember, time is always in years, so you don't use 6 for 6 months. Okay, you do a portion of the year, and we're talking about a half a year, so 0.5. Now the account balance is found by setting it equal to the principal, the beginning balance, which is 30,000, plus the interest earned after a half a year. So you click on this cell here, which is B21, and add it to, so go plus the interest, which is located in C21. You can type C21 or you just click on it. I usually just click on it because it's easier and faster. And then hit the enter button, and you get the total amount after a half a year. Again, this is a half a year period because we're doing it semi-annually and not annually. So now after a half a year, like you're midway through the year here, you have $30,900. Okay, that's great. So now in the second half of the year, okay, we start off with 30,900 and then we calculate the interest on that. This is the whole idea of compounding. So you don't type in $30,900, you type in the cell or the formula that where it comes from. So you click on D21, okay, which is the ending balance from the previous period, right there, and you hit enter. And notice that number now is used in the next calculation, the next half a year period. So in the next 6-month period, or the next half year period, you start off with $30,900, and now you calculate the interest on that. So as I said in the first video here, once you set up your formulas, you're going to copy paste throughout. Let's see if we are good to go here. So we're going to take this formula here, and we're going to click on the right hand corner, and we're going to copy, click and drag, okay. We're going to copy all the way down to year 10, and notice there's a bunch of zeros there after the second row. And the reason why is because this interest is based upon the previous balance, and since there's nothing there, there's no interest. So that kind of makes sense. If you go to account balance, you click and drag on the bottom right hand corner and go all the way down to year 10, okay, you'll see that there's a number there located in D22, okay. This account balance is the previous balance in B22 right here, plus the interest gives you this total. So it makes sense there's a number there. There's a zero here because there's no account balance here in B23. There's no interest in C23, so there's no account balance in D23. So these zeros make sense because I haven't copied this formula all the way down. I did this in part 1 of in the lesson. So you got to click and drag and apply the formula all the way down. Whoops, I didn't do that properly. So click and drag all the way down, not part of the way down, but all the way down. And you'll notice that the numbers appear, almost magically. So that's the beauty of spreadsheets. That's why people use them, because all you do is set up the formulas, copy paste throughout, and then it's dynamic. So if I change the amount from 30,000 to 10,000, okay, I don't have to recalculate. Okay, it calculates for me. That's the beauty of it. Okay, if you want to change the interest rate to 4%, no problem. You just change it and it dynamically changes. You can see the ending balance right at the bottom of the spreadsheet. And that's why people use spreadsheets, because they're dynamic, they're not static. Meaning that if I changed the amount that we start with here in the numerical example that we did by hand, and I either change the beginning principal or the interest rate, I'd have to redo all of this math by myself. Well, with a spreadsheet, you don't have to do that. It's dynamic, as I keep on saying. So, well, that's 300,000. That's a lot of zeros. There we go. Okay, let's change it back to the original numbers, because what we want to do is compare things. So I want to compare the first model, which is compounded annually, to the second model, compounded semi-annually. Okay, so what we need to do is get some final results here. So what is the final account balance after 10 years? Well, that's equal to, again, you don't type in the results, you type in a formula, and you always start a formula off by the equal sign. You go, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's scratch that. Let's scroll down here to the final account balance, and then hit enter. And notice that this here, let's highlight it. Let's bold it. Let's change the color to I don't know, just blue is good. And let's go down here and let's change this one to the same color so you can just correspond it. Okay, so notice that these are the same. Okay, so the final account balance after 10 years is obviously at the bottom of the table or the spreadsheet. Right there, that's the amount after 10 years. There we go. This is the beginning of the last 6-month period. There's your interest in the period, and there's the total balance. Okay, now what is the amount deposited? Well, that's equal to, all right, the initial investment, which is right up here in D18. You could select D18 or you could select B21 because they're the same thing. Hit enter. Okay, now how much interest is earned? Well, you got to subtract these two things. It's equal to the final balance minus the initial deposit, and you hit enter and you get this amount interest. Okay, so let's start comparing some values here. Now in the first model, Let's change the zoom here. Okay, so in the first model, when I say model, I'm talking example. The first model, compounded annually, we earned $23,725.43. In the second model, we let's highlight these here too. Let's see if I can do this. I don't know. I've never done this. Oh, cool. Okay, so let's highlight the end results. Okay, so I'm doing a little fill color. So find the fill color and just fill them in with a color. It's kind of like highlighters. Okay, so let's compare these two. So obviously in the first model, when you compound it annually, you make you make actually, because the bank pays you when you invest money in the bank, $23,725.43. In the second model, if you compound it every 6 months or every half a year, you earn more money, $24,183.34. The question is, how much more do you earn? So let's find that out. So you don't have to do it by hand. You just use Excel or Google Sheets to figure it out. So how much, all right, more, okay, more interest did you earn? So type that in, question mark. You guys are lucky I'm a slow typist. Okay, so let's bold this puppy and let's change the color to red. Okay, so bold, change it to red, and let's figure this out. Okay, so this is equal to this number here, which is this in model 2, the second model here, minus the previous one, the smaller one, right? So minus the previous one here, and then you hit enter. So we earned $457.91 more. That's why I said, how much more did you earn? Well, if you invest it semi-annually, which means every 6 months versus a full year, all right, you're going to earn almost $500 more. Okay, and that may not sound like enough to you, but guess what? Every penny counts, and the more money you make should interest you. Okay, so always invest it in a compounded interest account, number one, and then make sure you compound as many times as possible. So there are better ways of doing things. You can, instead of compounding every 6 months or every half a year, you can do it every quarter, which is 4 times a year. And then what's better than that is compounding monthly, 12 times a year. And what's better than that is daily. And then what's better than that is continuously. So there's different ways of doing things. So let's do it the third method. All right, so let's continue here. Let's copy the cells over. Okay. So this time I'm going to do it do it correctly here. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to copy the titles. Okay, so I'm going to copy all of these guys right here. So click and drag. Okay, so you put your let me do that again. You put your cursor in the middle of a cell, and you go from upper left to lower right, and you click and drag, and you figure out what cells you want to copy. So I want to copy all of those titles. Okay, and notice that it's highlighted right now. So I go Control C. Notice that it kind of has this really cool effect going on here. It tells you that it shows you the area that you're copying, and then come down here, skip a few rows. Okay, it doesn't matter how many you skip, but just skip a few rows, and then go Control V, and voila. Okay, everything is copied. Okay, so you don't have to retype everything, which is kind of nice. The Control C and Control V, everybody should know that on a PC. On a Mac, it's a little bit different. Okay, you're gonna have to use the other commands, but for the Mac users, you should already know how to do that. Okay, so now we're going to have to change the title. So this model here, this is the third model. The first model was annually. The second model was semi-annually, which means every half a year. Third model here, we're going to compound it quarterly. So double click on it. We're going to have to change the model, the title, okay, the model. So compound quarterly. Okay. There are 4 quarters a year, so we're going to compound it 4 times per year. Okay, so 4 times per year. Okay, so that's our third model here. And again, there's multiple models and there's multiple ways of doing things. So if you I'm doing it the step-by-step method, just using the simple interest formula, principal times rate times time. There are more advanced ways to do this, so keep that in mind. If you know the compound interest formula, then you can use that as well, and it'll be looking totally different. The results will be the same, but it will look different in the structure and the setup. Now, if we're going to do it every quarter, that's 4 times a year, all right, then I have to, my increments are going to be by 1/4. Okay, quarter means 1/4. 1/4 as a decimal is 0.25. So I'm going to start off with 0.25 or 0.25. Okay, next one, you add 0.25, you get 0.5. So 1/4, 2/4, which is a half, and then 3/4, 0.75. So basically you're adding quarters, so think money. If you add 3/4, you get 0.75. 4 quarters is $1 or 1. So this is 1 year. Now again, Google Sheets, what's cool about it is that it recognizes patterns. Okay, it's intelligent because of its programmers. Okay, so you highlight the cells that you need to recognize the pattern from, and again, this is arithmetic sequence where the common difference is 0.25 or a quarter. You keep on adding a quarter, and you'll get increments of a quarter all the way throughout the 10-year period. So we need to copy and paste this way down here to get to year 10. Now, if you go too short, watch what happens. Okay, you only get to year 6 1/4. Okay, so you got to get to year 10. Okay. Oh, I just got lucky right there. So notice that there's quarter there. It's quarter increments. Okay. So you got to go all the way to year 10. So it's simple. Just click and drag. All right. Now let's go back up here and set it up. And again, the same process applies. So you're going to set this equal to the beginning balance, which is in D43 this time. So you just select the cell where the principal is, or your beginning balance, okay, and then click enter, and voila, it appears. So if you change this to, let's say, 25,000, no problem. That automatically changes here. See, it corresponds to one another because it's a formula, not a value. So let's keep that at 30,000 because we want to compare models. So we have to, if we're going to compare models, we have to keep the same principal and keep the same interest rate so we can compare the models. You know, which one's better? So here we go. We got the beginning balance in the first quarter of the year, which is the first 3 months. Okay, we let it sit. How much interest do we get? It's always principal times rate times time. So you take the principal, so you set equal to. You always start a formula with an equal sign. You select B46 in this case, and you want to go shift 8. Okay, that's times. Okay, I'm going to put the interest rate in parentheses just to make a point. Okay, now where's the interest rate? Well, it's right up here in D44. So you can type in D44 or you can just click on it. But remember, I need this to be constant. If you don't include the dollar signs, $sign D, $sign 44, then the interest rate's going to change depending on how you copy paste the formula. So you got to be careful here. This is an important step. Very important step. It will not be correct unless you format it correctly. So this needs to be set to be constant. So those dollar signs make it constantly 6%. Okay, if you do not have the dollar signs, it will change. Okay, so be careful with this. That's an important step. We want to take 6 divided by 100 to convert it to a decimal. So divide it by 100. And the parentheses here, and now you want to multiply it by the time period. Okay, the time in years. It's PRT, principal times rate times time. And you want to go shift 8 again, times the time in years. And we're talking about a quarter periods. Okay, a quarter of a year, 1/4 of a year. So you can type in 1 divided by 4, or you can simply type in 2.25, hit the enter button, and you're going to get $450 interest for that, for the first quarter of the year. So this first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. Okay, in finance and in business, this kind of lingo happens all the time. Okay, now the account balance. What is that? Well, it's equal to. Again, anytime you set up a formula, which is how you want to design spreadsheets, is done by an equal sign, and it's found by taking the initial balance, which is called the principal, and adding it to the interest, which is in C46, and then you hit enter. So it calculates it for you. So you never type in numbers and results. You let it do the calculating for you by typing in formulas versus numbers. That's the key. And that's the power of the spreadsheet, because it's dynamic. It changes as you change the numbers. So for example, if I change this to 15,000, okay, everything changes. It's dynamic. It's not static. You don't have to redo the formulas or re-enter or anything like that. Once you set up a formula correctly, you're good to go. All right, so I just put it back there because we want to compare the three models, and the only way to compare the three models is if you keep the principal and the interest rate the same. Now, what happens in the second quarter? Well, the second quarter, we start off with not 30,000. Now we have $30,450, and that's the whole idea of compounding. You take the previous balance and then use it in the next quarter. In this case, I say quarter because we're compounding quarterly. So you set this equal to the previous balance, which we ended with was 30,450. Okay, so you click on that and you select enter. So now this is the new balance in the second quarter, and then we calculate the interest on that. So this is where you start copying and pasting the formulas. So I have all my formulas set up. So on the interest right here, you click and drag all the way down for the 10-year period. Just keep on dragging down. Okay, and you'll notice there's a bunch of zeros there, and I've talked about this extensively here. The reason why there's a zero here on the in C48 is because, guess what? To the left of it, there's no beginning balance. So if there's no balance, there's not going to be any interest. So that kind of makes sense. On this one here, let's go ahead and take that formula and apply it all the way down for the 10-year period. And you'll notice that there's a number here in D47 because there was an initial balance, and we added the interest, so we get a new balance. So that makes sense. There's a zero here because there's no beginning balance here, there's no interest, and so there's no account balance. What you have to do is take this formula here and copy and paste it all the way down. Okay, so let's do that. Let's click and drag all the way down. That copies the formula all the way down. And notice all the numbers appear, which is kind of nice. Now, if you still haven't set your numbers to currency, and you see like 10-digit decimals right here, which if you didn't set this to currency, you might see that. Then all you do is take all of these cells here, so you highlight all these cells, and then you come up here to the money sign right here, and you format it as currency. Currency meaning money. So when you click on that, it should round everything to the nearest penny, because there's only 100 cents in a dollar. And then it rounds it for you, which makes it look like money the way it should, okay? Because it should be a maximum of 2 digits to the right of the decimal because, well, there's 100 pennies per dollar, so it rounds it to the nearest hundredth. Okay, now what's the ending balance? Okay, so after 10 years, so we're going to set that equal to, and you got to go all the way down to the bottom of the spreadsheet and take a look at it. So at year 10, there's my ending balance. Okay, so let's highlight that. Just change it to blue, and change this one to blue as well, just to correspond things. Okay, so 54,420. Notice that's the same number right there. Now this side here, the total amount deposited is the same amount. It's 30,000. Okay, as I talked about earlier, and the interest you earned is equal to. Okay, so type in equals the final balance minus the initial deposit. So minus the initial deposit, and you hit enter. And so notice that this here, and let's highlight it. Well, we have a total interest earned of 24,420 compared to 24,183. So we've gotten better. Okay, we've gotten more money. So let me zoom out here. Okay, so here we go. Here's the difference between the two models. Boy, this is touchy. Okay, so come on. Okay, you can see it there. Okay, so in Model 2, compounding semi-annually, we had $24,183.34. In Model 3, compounding quarterly, right here, we have $24,420.55. So we've we've earned more money, so we've gotten better. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy this title here. Let's paste it in here. Question is, how much more money or how much more interest did you earn? Well, compared to the first model, okay, the first one. So let's calculate it. So this is equal to, okay, this number here minus the first number, which is way up here. Okay, I'm talking about how it's compared to the annually. So let's type in that one there, collect enter, and notice that, let's keep this red. Okay, there we go. So we now have $695.12 more. See, if you compound it semi-annually, you have $457 roughly more. If you do it quarterly, you have almost wow, look at that, almost $700 more, a lot more. So this teaches you guys that the more you compound things, okay, let me go back to regular size here. The more you compound things, or the more times you compound it per year, okay, and compound annually is once a year, semi-annually twice a year, quarterly 4 times a year. So the more you compound it, the more money you make, okay? And that's the whole idea. In fact, if we did the next model, which will be in my next video here, we'll do it monthly, which is 12 times a year. Oh, shoot. Oh, yeah, 12 times a year. That'd be totally different. So I thought I messed up on something, but I'm good. Okay, so here we compound it 4 times a year. That's why there's 4 time periods for the year. And then again, we'll do it later on for a monthly situation. We'll see how that changes, okay? All right, so this is part 2 of the video. There will be another part here where we go to, monthly perhaps, and do things differently here, and we'll see which model earns us the most money. All right, this is a video, guys. I'm Mr. Ainsworth here, trying to help you out in financial algebra. Do your best. If you have to watch any portions of it again or go back to the part 1 where I discussed the first method here, compounding annually, you can do whatever it takes. All right, part 2 I discussed today, how to compound semi-annually, and then the last thing I did was compounding quarterly, all right, which is 4 times a year. All right, so hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you're getting better at the Google Sheets, which is just a different version of Excel, and learning how to compute compounded interest using what's called a spreadsheet. All right, I'll see you in my next lesson. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.